Welcome to Leadership DNA, a podcast for those who aspire to be a better leader. Alongside Arturo Gomez, I'm Rob Cressy. Today's topic, well-defined purpose. Arturo, what is a well-defined purpose?
Rob, it has to be why we exist. If we were a food item, it would be our recipe. If we were an assembly project, it would be the directions. It is exactly the reason why we were put on this earth. And for me, it's probably the thing that I have thought about the most over the last 2 years, almost to the point that now it's at an obsession point, that I so firmly believe what that reality means for me, that it actually is shaping the things that I decide to do literally on a daily basis.
I absolutely love that. And I want to actually dig deeper for a second about how you said it's almost an obsession, because the thing that immediately popped into my head is that's great. Of course, not the word obsession, but for me, I see a level of commitment in this. And when you're so certain on something, maybe we'll use certainty instead of obsession, but when you're so certain on something, you're so all in on something, your actions can't help but follow the belief that you have in the certainty in yourself, in what you're doing. And so often in leadership or in life, so many people are without a rudder, or maybe they're not going exactly where they are. But man, you bring that laser focus to who you are and what you believe and the action that comes behind it. Holy smokes, Batman, you've got something. So can you explain a little bit more about that from your standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason I say obsession is because it really is something that is coming into mind throughout the day, literally every day now. And so, we all, I think, are searching for and yearning for purpose, for some type of clarity, for some type of sign to tell us that we're at least on the right path. And it's a very weighted question. It's a complete, some people, certainly some people that I've asked, it almost throws them off course immediately. When I asked them, I said, do you really understand what your purpose is? Like, what is your purpose here on earth? Like that is the question that I'm looking at. And that's the obsession around what type of clarity and what type of direction it certainly has given me. And like I said, there's a lot of people that I've asked. Most people actually are not able to actually answer that question. And I think that people are very focused on passions. Passions certainly are a close relative and are kind of these satellites that revolve around, this core, which is purpose. But passions are very different from purpose. And the question that I actually ask people is, whether you're religious or not, this is just an example. It's if you're standing in front of God and God asks you, why are you here? Why do you exist? What is your answer? And so, I think, and the reason I love this podcast and the reason I love that we're talking about it is because I do think that everybody has a purpose. Everybody was put here for some reason or another. And that is, I think, a very, very important question that we should all seek to answer, because, as I've read and as I've heard, that as we progress through life and as we near those end of days, I don't want to be too morbid, but that we all search and we all ask the question of, what was this all for and what was this all about? And if you can intercept that earlier in your life and really live a life that is complete and in line with something that you firmly believe is the right answer to why you're here, I think, there's just happiness abound in that whole concept,
So you touched on something. Let's talk about age. You said the earlier someone figures out what their purpose is, the better. So when did you figure out your purpose? And is your purpose something that can change and evolve as you get older?
I think, I do believe that there is some malleability to this concept, or to each purpose. I mean, it took me all of 44 years of my life to really feel like I've actually nailed it down. I mean, and I'll tell you that I've actually been searching for this answer probably as early as 6, 7 years old. And I'm not kidding. I think I told you the story, but it's just an odd story that I was riding my bike down the street one day, and I was riding home. It was time for dinner, and I literally almost got. I mean, this is some people are going to think I'm crazy, but I literally almost felt like I was thrown off my bike, and something just kind of overcame me, and with this concept that, hey, you were put here on this earth for a very specific reason. This is at 5 or 6 years old. Um, and I remember telling my mom that day, and I remember, many subsequent conversations that I've had with my mother over the years about that, and she remembers it vividly because I was so like adamant that something had just occurred. And so I think that I spent my entire, literally life leading up until this point, really trying to better understand who I was, identifying my passions, because those have changed. There's things that I loved when I was younger that um, I think that I've grown out of. There's things that certainly have stuck with me throughout my life. But I think, listen, if you're able to pinpoint what that purpose is, and you really feel adamant that it really has, that it is identifying you in various ways, to me, it doesn't matter what time of your life it comes. I think it's just important that it comes. And I think that it's not something that certainly it wasn't something for me that just popped into my mind, or that just kind of was presented on a platter. I had to work at it. I had to actually push myself, and I, maybe brought this up in a previous podcast, but I went on this week long Lululemon retreat, and was, fortunate enough to actually have been, invited to this thing. And I carved some time in my schedule, which was actually rare, because typically in the past I was, taking a full week off and they didn't even tell you where you were going. You just literally were getting on a plane, and you were sent a ticket, and you knew that you were going to California. So anyways, you go there for this week, and they really strip you down. They strip you down, and, emotionally. There's we're doing yoga 3 times a day. They're pushing on you to leave your devices and your phones and stuff in your room, and so that you're kind of detached. So you really had this meditative week. And it wasn't until actually I left that retreat that I came to this realization that there was something that I had identified as my purpose. And so, now fast forward, 2 years later, and it really has taken all of the year and a half, 2 years of kind of marinating on this concept, and really taking time throughout this year, through the pandemic, which again afforded me time and an opportunity to be meditative and kind of reflective on this whole concept, that, I'm walking into this year. And this actually started a few months ago, but now feeling very confident um, that nothing really can derail the purpose. My purpose isn't aligned with a business objective. It's aligned really with clear things that have that I've identified through my passions, and into the things that bring me real happiness, and then also identified my ability to actually bring other people real happiness. And so that's it.
So let's get very tactical here, because I believe
Yeah.
there's so much value in this for everyone, both with the people who currently have their purpose well defined, as well as people who might be looking for it. So let's start with this. What is each of our purposes? Because now, once we give that example, we can build off of it, how we got there, what it means to us, so that we can add some context. So let's start with that. Arturo, what is your purpose?
For me, and this actually has morphed a little bit, but it's to empower, inspire, and bring happiness to myself and those around me. And I, throughout my entire life, I've found that my happiest moments when I was putting smiles on people's faces. And I think a lot of people can probably say the same thing. We like make people happy. I mean, generally, but um, the decisions that I made throughout my early adulthood and throughout my professional entrepreneurial career really have all been around mentoring, empowering, and happiness. Through hospitality, I was actually able to kind of fill those fill those gaps in terms of what my soul and what my spirit needed. But I now know that the things that I do, the businesses that I'll be involved with, the actions that I take, have to be qualified by that statement. If I'm not empowering somebody, whether it's myself or somebody around me, or inspiring myself or somebody around me, or making somebody happy, or myself, then it's out of bounds. I need to make a decision then on, do I want to spend time doing X, Y, and Z if it no longer fits my purpose? And I think, and when I actually try to tie that statement and that belief to these business objectives and goals that I have, because I think those are two different things. They're very much in line. They're very much, they can, I can, and this isn't like, oh, let's see how we can attach this dot to that dot. They're truly, truly in line with the things that I actually believe that I was, set here to do. So
I love it. And it very much resonates with me because I think we're very much aligned in how we think and operate. So for me, my purpose is to be a positive force for good that leads others to what's possible. And this is something that has had to evolve in me. And for me, as I've mentioned previously in the podcast, I feel like I've lived different lives. I've got the corporate version of Rob, which I'd lived for, I don't know, 32 plus years. And then there's the entrepreneurial Rob who said, I'm building the world in my image and I'm going to make this happen. And that's when I really started to become a student of the game of personal development and success and leadership and mindset and high performance. And that's when I've mentioned previously when we talked about the positivity side of things, when I realized negativity wasn't going to serve me or help me get to where I want to go. I was like, all right, I'm the leader of Team Good Vibes because that's going to help me accomplish that. So when I break down I'm a positive force for good, it very much originates from my own understanding of what I needed to become to accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish. And then the next part of it that leads others to what's possible. So for me, I was starting at zero. Dream was to work in sports and be creative. So started making sports. We're a sports blog. Don't know what we're doing, but we're just going on this dream. We're building, building, building. And through all of this became this maturation of I would continually do things that I didn't know was possible. And then I would impress and surprise myself, being like, wow, I can't believe I just did that. And then other people are like, wow, you're doing all of these other things. And wow, it was not for external validation. What I realized is in building the world in my image, it gave me an opportunity to lead and inspire others to do the same, however they wanted to define it. You don't need to live the life that I am or do the things the way that I am doing, but I want to show you what is possible. And the way that I'm going to do that is by leading a life of positivity and good. So by being so purpose driven in my own world, that's why I do all of the things that I do. That's why you and I are doing this podcast right now, Arturo, because you have happiness and I have goodness for the world. And we're inspiring others how to be better leaders and how you can better lead yourself, how you can better lead your team. So for me, I'm going to be living this on a daily basis. So I'm the example to show you of what's possible. Doesn't mean you need to do it, but I'm an example. And the more that you can find inspiration around of, wow, Rob did this, I can do this. You know what? I'm going to take a little nugget from Arturo, a little nugget from Rob. I'm going to make this my own. So for me, that's where my purpose comes from.
by the way, I love it. And as somebody who's gotten to know you, quite well, over the last year, we've known each other for longer than that, but I would say, much better over the course of this year. I think that is, I can say that that's truth. I can say that from the outside looking in and see all the things that you're involved with, the things that you talk about, the things that your eyes light up about, that your purpose is truly aligned with your actions. And so, so that's awesome. And I, I wanted to just circle back and say that, cause you asked the question, is a purpose something that has flexibility, and can it change over time? I do believe it can. And I think I mentioned that I do think that there is some flexibility, malleability in terms of what it is. I do think though that there's always going to be this core, and this core is this fundamental belief that I think that we can get to, some of us sooner than later, and there's possibilities of layers on it. There is no bad thing about adding more goodness and positivity to something that you've identified as is who you are, and who you are to be. Um, and I think, this isn't, we're not, I'm not saying that people have to, that you're really going to change the changes that I've seen in myself is really about time allocation, focus, and clarity. And, that's it. I think that I'm still same person that I've been, for my entire life. I think that I have a little bit more, like I said, clarity. Like I can see further down the road than I could have, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And so, there's various things that come into your life that are going to shape this idea of purpose. But I do think that it's such a great exercise that people can put themselves through in terms of, you should really answer that question, and not just your passions, but go deeper, go further, because it's going to de-stress you when somebody has these answers that I think that we're all seeking throughout life. That's the philosophical kind of quintessential question. What is the meaning of life? And it really is not what is the meaning of life. It's like, to me, it's the interpretation is, what is the meaning of my life? What is my purpose? And so, um, big, big, weighty topic, but I think it has so many implications for ourselves. It has implications on humanity. It has implications just abound. And so, um, got to get to it. And if you haven't figured it out, that's okay. Everybody's on their own path and on their own journey. It is something that you do need to make that stop, and you do need to ask those questions, and you do need to get directions.
So you've mentioned the word path 3 times, once at the beginning and then twice now. And I wanted to ask to you earlier, but now it's perfect because you had said to know if you're on the right path. And then just now you said, hey, I can see the path further right now. And now we've got path as it relates to your journey. And I think one of the very beneficial things about this purpose is it can be tough sometimes to know, am I on the air quotes right path? As if there's a right or a wrong way to do things or to do our life. And certainly the path for an entrepreneur or a purpose-driven individual or as a leader, it's oftentimes undefined, and or it is designed by us. And one of the things that I've matured into and learned is being the architect of my own path, which certainly being purpose-driven helps us do that. But then how do you know if you're on the right path? And I believe the way that you know is by going back to your purpose. And what the purpose ends up doing is becomes this rock, this foundation inside of you. And I would actually visualize a fortress inside your stomach. And I'm very big into visualization. And certainly when you can attach feelings and emotions into some of these things. So you think about this fortress of who you are, and inside of you is your purpose. So now as you're going through life and in business, you sit there and say, does this align? And sometimes when something doesn't go the right way or the way that you expect it to go or the way that you want it to go, and you're like, man, am I doing the right thing right now? Am I on the right path? what do? You go back and you look inside, and am I aligned to your purpose? And I think there's a lot of self-reflection or self-auditing that we can all do for ourselves, where you say, all right, I need to get real with myself. Am I doing things aligned to my own purpose? And I think a lot of times we may realize that we may go astray by allowing shiny objects or other things to lead us somewhere, but we can always go back to our due north. And that due north is something that sits inside of you. And you say, you know what? Even though the thing didn't go the way that I want right now, I still know who I am. I still know I'm a positive force for good that leads others to what's possible. It is not outcome based. And this is an extremely difficult thing to deal with or understand, knowing that so many of us are outcome based. But it's also why being able to place more emphasis on effort and action than outcome will lead you to a much happier or purpose-driven life, because you're not relying on the thing happening. You're more relying on you doing the thing, and the results, you can't control what you can't control.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think kind of recap that a little bit. I mean, the last statement in terms of you can't control what you can't control, that's something that we all need to live by. And so there's going to be things that arise in your life and things that occur that are completely out of your control. And that's just that. Has no bearing on your purpose, has no bearing on anything that you've done. It's just something that's happened. I do think, though, that people will get more efficient in making decisions about where they spend their time, what they do, when they have more time, when they've had more time to digest their purpose. So again, this kind of realization that I've come to occurred about 2 years ago. It'll almost be, I think, 3 years coming up here in June. But it's taken time for me to digest it and to really understand it. And just like with anything else, we don't just automatically pick up directions to a new toy or directions to something and automatically have mastery of it. It's like, this is something that, again, it's like, okay, this feels really great. I can jump into this, but we're still, I think, attached to passions, and we're still, it's the decisions that we make throughout life that help bring clarity towards purpose. It's like, damn, I just spent 1.5 years of my life with this person or on this project or, doing X, Y, and Z. And it was to no avail. Like, nothing came of it. Actually, bad things happened from it. And so we learn through these processes, these mistakes, and these areas where we can learn throughout our experiences in life. I do think that once you get a firm hold of your purpose and it feels like it's clearly cemented into this fortress, that you start making decisions that are a lot more efficient for your life. And that's not to say you're never going to make a bad decision, but if for me, again, I now look at things and I, compartmentalize it. I say, am I going to be able to empower, inspire, or bring happiness either to myself or the people around me in doing this? And, you can't, not everything you're going to do. Like, I have to go to Home Depot later. Okay. I guess it's going to bring me happiness because it's going to take something off my task list. But, not everything you do in life is going to be surrounding this thing. I think you need to treat the major decisions that you're making, about where you're spending your time, who you're spending your time with, and the things that you're pursuing should probably be linked to this idea or question of who you are in this world.
So let's get extremely tactical. So we've given so many ideas in ways to do this, but I want to be extremely specific. You want to create your purpose. Rob and Arturo, how do we do this? So number one, intention. You need to be intentional about this. You need to sit there and say, you know what? I want to create, discover, lead into my purpose. I don't know what word I want to use there because it's a very intimate thing for you, but you want to be intentional about it. And then number two, I'm going to say start writing things down. Just free associate, have no judgment whatsoever. Set a timer for 30 minutes, go somewhere. I don't care if you go to a Starbucks or get a coffee or just you and a notebook or you and a computer, and just give it to the title it My Purpose and just see what flows and what words and sentences come. And don't feel that you have to do this and to create the perfect sentence, because I believe this is a process, as we've both talked about. I didn't land on this the first time. This has been years in the making of doing this. So you write it down, and then maybe you put it down after 30 minutes, and you come back a day later, an hour later, I don't care when, and you look at it again, and you're like, man, what resonated with me right here? And then you're like, I wonder if I could shorten this a little bit, or add some brevity, because I think what I like so much about what you say, Arturo, aside from the place of good, is it's very succinct. You can very easily go up to either one of us and be like, hey, what's your guys' purpose? Boom. Right away, we're going to be able to say it. It's going to say something about us. You don't want to have this long, drawn out story because you're adding too much. Our stuff is not complex. It's extremely simple, despite the fact that it's so deep. So I'm curious, from your perspective, Arturo, tactically, what would you recommend someone does to create their purpose?
Well, I think it's a real introspective exercise, right? It's identifying things that we truly are passionate about, things that we've been drawn to, because you have to again, and when you're trying to get to the core, you're peeling back layers, and so the layers around the core are surrounded by passion. And so when you find things that you've gravitated towards in your life, whether it's charity work, making people happy, being a creative, whatever those things are, they really are going to be able to, I think, introduce the concept of purpose. I actually still have the exercises and the kind of the playbook that we used at this Lululemon retreat. I don't think it's I didn't sign anything saying that I couldn't share it, and I'm sure that Lululemon is a brand that certainly would I think encourage people's pursuit of finding this question. So I'm going to share that. We're going to create some type of shareable white paper, and we'll get this out to everybody. But it really is, and a couple of things that I looked at it this morning, a couple of things that are in there. And again, it's isolating and finding the things that you're passionate about. It's also one of the last parts of the exercise leading up to you actually writing a purpose statement is doing a toast. So you're toasting from three different perspectives. One is a toast to yourself. Actually, I have it here in front of me. I don't want to butcher it, so I'm going to actually pull this out real quick, and I'm going to actually cite it so that we have it. And it's right here. So, so you're going to do three toasts. One is to the toast to what you know you have always been. So I toast to myself, who's always been a caring, thoughtful person. Your natural talents and gifts, and then who you are for other people. So for this one, you got to move beyond titles, example, mother, brother, manager, professional athlete, etc., and shift into qualities you embody. Okay. And so the idea was that you are to create these toasts from these three different perspectives. And so you're almost looking at it as like how you interpret yourself, how you believe other people interpret you. And so it forced, and I'm looking at, writing in here that we did actually on that day. And so, and there's all the elements of my final purpose are in that book, which is actually fun to be able to go back and look at. So I would say, there is some reflective journal writing type exercises that you can do. And it really will take you committing a day, 2 days. This was a full week. This is a full week of of detachment. It was like, you're not looking at your phone every 2 seconds. You're not on email. You're actually in meditation. You're doing yoga. And I know it's hard for a lot of people to actually take that amount of time. I'd say there's probably never a better time in history than what we're going through now. It doesn't look like things are going to change in the next 6 months. So if you're a work from home person, if you're a mother, if you're whoever you are, I think that there's some stillness in the universe right now that you can take some time and give yourself that little bit of reflection, to get a better and deeper understanding of why you're here. And it's actually, this whole podcast is super timely because it's an exercise I'm going to go through with my wife. It's there's questions that she has that I think that being a mother over the last 4 years, it's you kind of get pulled into this um, completely selfless type of persona where everything you have and everything you give is for this other human. And there's moments in pieces of your identity that get stripped down. And so, as we've just had our second child about a year ago. And so the smoke is starting to clear and we're starting to see, how this thing is going to unfold, and trying to help her further identify, where she might, be professionally beyond this, right? She spent 10, 11, 12 years in the highest levels of PR. And but she's not sure that that's where she wants to go. And so we're going to kind of work through this exercise over the next week, and hopefully we can kind of pull some things out of it, and really identify something that gives her a better understanding of what that purpose is.
One of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself is time. We all oftentimes believe I don't have enough time. Well, that's actually just a fallacy, because we have unlimited time until we die. It's just a matter of how we decide to fill it and how we're going to use that time. And if you want to create more time, you don't just find it, you create it. You say, all right, I want to go and spend some time intentionally on creating my purpose. All right, well, that probably just means you're going to watch 1 hour less of Netflix or something else that doesn't serve you as much. This is where it comes down to. There's always plenty of time. You just have to say, I'm prioritizing this more than one other thing. And the last thing that I'm going to leave with, in terms of how you can really live and feel your purpose, is I read my purpose every single morning as part of my morning routine. It's part of my boot sequence, just like gratitude in affirmations and meditation and journaling and these things you and I, Arturo, talk about all the time. As part of that, how do I be someone who is always a positive force for good that leads others to what's possible? Constant intention. Boom, that awareness is there every single morning. Reminds me, boom, Rob, you know who you are. Go kick ass today. I'm like, thank you very much. Rinse and repeat every single day of my life over and over again. And you can't help but build that fortress inside of you.
Yeah, it's such a wonderful process, and the end result is, I think, I'm trying to convince anybody who's listening that that it will be 100% time well served, in trying to actually go through this process to define it. It's such an enlightening thing to come to this realization. It's almost like you've seen and found something out about yourself that potentially you never knew the depth of it or the reality to it. I think we've all seen glimpses of it, because again, our behavior, our experiences, and our passions really are kind of intertwined in where our purpose lies. But it's time well spent.
It is. So, Arturo, now let's get to the action item or takeaway. What do you have for everybody?
I mean, the action item is going to be, kind of what we discussed in terms of, setting up a time, whether it's a Saturday afternoon, whether it's a Saturday, Sunday, whether it's a week long, whether it's a month long, however long it takes. And again, I think everybody needs to understand that there is no race. Everybody's journey is a little different. You may get the answer, you may not, but you're certainly going to find some progress in actually writing these things down. Once we send out this white paper, people can. I'd like for people to actually take a moment to go through this exercise, and you're going to need somebody else to do it with, because that's part of where the honesty comes in. You have to be in front of somebody. And I was surrounded by pretty much complete strangers. I mean, these people didn't really know me, but there was quite a bit of opportunity, or certainly it was, the concept of honesty when you're sitting in front of somebody else, at least was strong in me. But I'd love to hear what people thought of the exercise. I'd love to, have people go through it and see if they've gotten, one step closer to answering this question that I think is the question that we should all answer.
And my action item is sort of the next level of this is I want you to send Arturo and I what your purpose is. If you've already got it, fantastic. Send it to us. We would love to support you in that. Or if you're someone who creates your purpose because of this podcast, even better, send it to us. Arturo, where can everybody connect with you?
Best place is going to be Arturo Gomez LinkedIn.
And for me, you can hit me up on all social media platforms, especially Instagram and LinkedIn at Rob Cressy, and over on my website, robcressy.com. I'm going to be posting this episode with the audio and the video and the ability for you to download the white paper when we get it. This is something that I love and live by, and Arturo does as well. So we want to be a positive force for good for you in everything that you do.